I'm Dr. Ali. Welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm a functional physician, and my goal is to provide education and guidance to our patients, their families, as well as our community on how to achieve optimal health and wellness. Everyone has the ability to achieve optimal health by making simple, sustainable changes to our lifestyle. We can prevent and even reverse chronic disease. So, let us talk about a very interesting topic today. The topic we will be discussing today is called inflammaging. So, what we will try to do is to look at the connection between inflammation and aging. Inflammaging is a concept which is defined as an age related increase in levels of inflammatory markers in the blood and tissues of our body. The presence of this inflammation is a very strong risk factor for reducing our lifespan. And so we'll talk about how does that happen as we age and how can we possibly reverse that and prevent that. So let's first talk about what is aging. So aging is the process of becoming older. It's a natural and inevitable part of life. There are a number of factors that contribute to the process of aging. This includes genetics, lifestyle, environmental factors, the intensity of stressors that we face, as well as the kind of emotional support that we have in our lives. All of those things impact the aging process. They determine how quickly we will age, and they determine how much are we at risk for developing disease and conditions that will reduce our longevity. So, what is inflammation? Let's start off with that. When our body sustains damage of any kind, that part of the body becomes red and swollen. It feels warm to the touch. That is inflammation. It is our body's way of fighting off infection and healing the damage. So, inflammation is a process that we have to protect us. However, we have to understand that there are two different types of inflammation. There's an inflammation that we term as acute inflammation. Acute inflammation is a type of short term inflammation that our body produces to address injuries, illness, and infections. And this process is protective in nature. However, there is another type of inflammation, which is chronic inflammation, which is considered to be damaging. So, what is chronic inflammation? Chronic inflammation refers to a prolonged state of low grade inflammatory response in the body that persists for an extended period of time, typically weeks, months, or even years. When chronic inflammation occurs, the body's immune system stays activated for an extended period of time. And this leads to a continuous cycle of inflammation. This continuous cycle of inflammation has the ability to damage healthy tissues and organs. So, acute inflammation is good, but chronic inflammation is definitely not good. So, why is it that we are worried about chronic inflammation? So, the chronic low grade inflammation contributes to the development of a range of age-related diseases which affects our longevity and our quality of life and quality of our health. These diseases include heart disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, cancer, arthritis. So, this is the process of inflammaging, which is that this chronic inflammation leads to the process of aging. So, the question is, what are the reasons that inflammation leads to aging? So we will talk about four different mechanisms that leads to aging related to chronic inflammation. The first and foremost is damage to the cell. As we age, our cells are exposed to environmental stressors. These stressors could be physical in nature, such as UV radiation or ultraviolet radiation. It could be pollution that we are exposed to. We could be exposed to chemicals. We could be exposed to toxins. And these toxins damage the DNA. They damage the proteins and they damage the structures of our cells as a result of the inflammation that they produce. The second mechanism is that as we age, our immune function is not as efficient and as effective as it was when we were younger. And this reduction in the immune function leads to our immune system becoming less efficient at identifying and fighting off harmful bacteria, viruses, as well as other organisms that can lead to chronic infections. And those chronic infections cause chronic low grade inflammation. The third is directly linked to the second point that chronic infections, such as chronic viral infections, chronic infections in our mouth, such as periodontitis, are also reasons that lead to chronic inflammation. So both immune deficit leads to chronic infections, and then chronic infection leads to inflammation. So the second and third points are connected. The fourth is changes in the gut microbiome. So the bacteria in our gut actually change as a result of aging. And they change as a result of aging because aging leads to more wear and tear. And that leads to changes in the gut microbiome. And this change leads to an increase in inflammation and a decline in immune function, which leads to the development of age-related diseases. So the gut plays a very important role in inflammation and aging because it is the primary place where the gut bacteria are present. And those can play a very big role in development of chronic diseases, which can then directly impact inflammation and aging. So, what are the ways we can reduce inflammation as we age? So, the first and very important thing we can do is to adopt an anti-inflammatory diet. An anti-inflammatory diet is a diet which is rich in foods that are anti-inflammatory in nature. So, examples of foods that are anti inflammatory in nature and high in antioxidants and phytonutrients are fruits such as berries, green leafy vegetables, healthy fats such as found in fatty fish, avocados, nuts, and seeds. So, all of these anti inflammatory foods can help reduce chronic inflammation and help with reversing the aging process. Similarly, avoiding or minimizing processed foods, sugary foods, and excessive consumption of alcohol also helps reduce inflammation. The second thing which can reverse the inflammation that leads to aging is regular physical activity. Regular physical activity has been shown to have anti inflammatory effects. We can engage in moderate intensity aerobic exercise, strength training, and flexibility exercises. It is important to choose exercises that are appropriate for your fitness level and to consult with a healthcare professional before starting a new exercise routine. The third and very important area which we all need to work on is managing stress. We know that chronic stress contributes to inflammation. So, practicing stress management techniques such as mindfulness meditation, yoga, deep breathing, Tai Chi are other ways to improve the inflammation and help with reducing the aging process. The next thing that we can do is to understand the importance of sleep. We know that chronic sleep deprivation or poor sleep quality disrupts the normal functioning of the immune system and leads to increased inflammation. And so it is important that we make sure that we have adequate quantity of sleep and we make sure that the sleep is of good quality. Last but not least, there are certain anti inflammatory supplements which have the potential to reduce the inflammation and reverse the process of aging. So, taking some of those supplements, such as omega 3 fatty acids, turmeric, and ginger, can also help reduce inflammation and reverse the process of aging. A functional approach to reducing inflammaging. Basically, in a functional approach, the same four areas that we talked about that cause inflammation are addressed. The first is microbiome. So, optimizing microbiome is one of the first and foremost goals of a functional approach to reduce inflammation and inflammaging. Second is to identify and address chronic infections. These chronic infections play a very important role in causing chronic inflammation. The third area which functional medicine addresses is environmental toxins. Environmental toxins such as pesticides, herbicides, chemicals trigger chronic inflammation in the body. So, identifying those toxins and detoxing the body is very important for reducing chronic inflammation. Last but not least, a very important area that the functional approach addresses is strengthening the immune system. It is important to understand that the immune system plays a very important role in the process of aging. And an immune system which is not overly active is very important for reducing inflammation. So, in functional medicine, there are ways to assess and address the inflammation that is occurring inside the body. And this is very helpful to prevent the development of chronic disease. Thank you so much for being part of our wellness community. We hope to connect again with more interesting and valuable information.